Hello and welcome to the quick start video for WikiTraccs, your tool to migrate content from Confluence to SharePoint Online. And what we are going to do now in this video is we are going to download WikiTraccs, configure it, go to Azure AD and SharePoint Online, do some configuration there, and then start our first migration. So when you're on the homepage, like I am now, wikitransformationproject.com, you have lots of download buttons, ultimately leading you to a GitHub repository where you can download the latest release. I will click this right now here. And you have also a link to the quick start guide, and everything I tell you now should be written there as well. So the download has finished. I already downloaded it and extracted it because it takes some time, and ultimately the download is a zip file. It's a transportable version, so you have no installer. You just have a folder containing two other folders. WikiTraccs console is doing the heavy lifting of the migration. It's a console application, and WikiTraccs GUI is giving you a user interface that you can use and that should be easier to use than the console application. Now open the WikiTraccs GUI folder, and you will find here the executable. Run it, and don't be scared. Windows thinks it has to protect you from the download because it's coming from the internet. It's showing this dialog because the executable is not signed. So we are going to unblock it by right-clicking, choosing Properties, Unblock, and that's it. And then we can run it. Now the window that opens is a console application as well. It looks a bit like a Midnight Commander or a Norton Commander, if you know this. So, but it's giving us on the left side different steps we have to complete. So it's step 1 is choosing the source, which is our Confluence we want to migrate content from. Step 2 would be choosing the target, that is our SharePoint Online. And step 3 is validating that we actually can connect. And step 4 is starting the migration. Now let's choose step 1. We need a Confluence to migrate. And I'm a bit lazy. I know that there are lots of Confluences out there we can use. And there's a phrase you can Google, and that is this, powered by a free Atlassian community license, and you will find lots of Confluences out there accessible for anybody for different reasons. And I'm interested in this one. I found the Hyperledger Foundation. I don't know what it is. I'm not affiliated to it, but it has nice content we can use for a demo. So I'm going here to the start page and copy this URL. This would be the URL you would take from your Confluence, and we go back to WikiTraccs GUI and fill it in right here. Then for the authentication type, we choose anonymous because we don't have to log in. If you have a Confluence where you have to log in to access the content, you choose interactive login. That's it for Confluence. Now we need a target site. So we actually need two target sites, the site hosting the content and a site for WikiTraccs to save some metadata around the migration, and also for you to configure certain aspects of the migration, and that is the WikiTraccs site. And we are going to create this one now. I'm starting up a new Chrome browser window, and take note that I have 3 identities which I'm using here. It's my user account, my normal user account. It's the Microsoft 365 Global Admin, and I have an account that will be used for the migration. That is a WikiTraccs migration account. So I'm now choosing the Global Admin and go to the SharePoint Admin Center to create my WikiTraccs site. I choose Create Site. Doesn't matter which type. I choose a communication site and call it Store. I make my migration account a site owner, choose the time zone, and create the site. Now I'm opening the site. I have no access. That is okay because I'm not the migration account, but I'm currently using the admin account that has not been given access. I copy the URL, go back to WikiTraccs GUI and put it in here. Now WikiTraccs needs the tenant ID and it can figure it out by itself. Click on try auto detect from site, and usually that works. If some firewall rules are blocking access to some endpoints, you might have to figure it out yourself and enter it here. Now, an interesting thing, we need an Azure AD application that has to be registered in Azure. There are multiple ways of doing this. I'm choosing the easiest one. Just note there are other ways to do this. So now I need an application, and I know there's a cool PowerShell module out there. It's PnP PowerShell, and it has a commandlet registering such an application for me. So I'm now switching to PowerShell, and I'm running PowerShell out of Visual Studio Code, and you have to install one module, the PowerShell, one extension, the PowerShell extension, to run PowerShell here. And when you install this, you will also have to install PowerShell 7. Then when you have installed PowerShell, you have to install the PnP PowerShell module. This is the command, install module PnP PowerShell. I'm using the current user scope to not need any admin access, and I'm running this right now. Run. I'm always pressing F8, so I'm pressing F8 and it runs the command. And the commandlet we want to use is register PnP management shell access. I'm going to run this now, and here in the background the authentication window opens, and I'm now going to use the global admin account to grant the creation of this application. So I'm being informed about delegated permissions this application potentially has access to. Ultimately, when logging in to WikiTraccs with the migration account, the permissions of the migration account will be leading and will be used. So, but now I need to create this application. I accept, and everything is fine. And I'm now going to Azure AD to see if the creation actually succeeded. So when you're in Azure Active Directory, in this case, go to Enterprise Applications. It can take a couple of seconds to appear here. Also, when deleting it and recreating it, you always have about half a minute that it takes before being shown here. There it is, PnP Management Shell. This one is coming from Microsoft and therefore is shown under Enterprise Applications. Good. This application has an ID. It's this application ID here that is the same for every customer and every tenant this enterprise application is created in, and so we have a button, use M365 PnP client ID, and that fills in this ID here. For authentication type, I leave interactive, so a browser window will open, supports fully multi-factor authentication, which is good. That's it for the target configuration. No, not really. We have one additional SharePoint site we have to create. That is the actual migration target. So this WikiTraccs site is used by WikiTraccs for metadata and stuff, and we need another site collection, and I'm going to create this as well. Going to the admin center, create another site, not migrate but target. There we go. Migration account needs access here. Okay, so admin account has no access. That is okay. Doesn't need it. Going back to the GUI and paste this URL down here. Okay. So now it's time to test the connections. I click on Test Confluence Connection. A browser opens that is automated by WikiTraccs. And in this case, I don't have to log in. It's anonymous authentication. So WikiTraccs just checks. Yes, it's Confluence and everything is fine. And I'm getting a success message. Okay, let's test the SharePoint connection. For this, I have to authenticate. I don't want to authenticate in this browser because I only have the admin account here and I'm lazy. I want to reuse another account, so I'm switching identities. I'm going to use a browser where I'm already logged in with the WikiTraccs migration account. Paste the URL here, and here I'm already logged in. I click this, and authentication is complete as migration account. WikiTraccs checks that the target site for the migration can be reached and that permissions are okay, and also for the store site. That looks pretty good. Then the next step is updating the space inventory. WikiTraccs needs to create certain fields, content types, and lists in the two site collections we just created. And it just warns me that it's going to do that for our migration target. It will create an additional content type for the pages library to store metadata around migrated pages. And yes, I want to do this. It's now starting, preparing. When the buttons are not disabled anymore, it finished preparing. And it will also get all spaces it can see from our source Confluence and save some metadata in the WikiTraccs site. Okay. It got 70 spaces from Confluence, so the account we are using to access Confluence can see 70 spaces. And information about those spaces is stored in the WikiTraccs site. And I can open the WikiTraccs site here. As we are done with the configuration validation, we are going to the transformation step, and I now open the space inventory to choose the spaces I want to migrate. So again, wrong browser, I'm copying the URL. Let's see. Okay, it's the access denied site, but I know where to look. So in the WikiTraccs site, you have a list, Confluence Space Inventory. And this list contains now all information about all 70 spaces that could be found in Confluence. And I want to use, I want to migrate just one. The climate action special interest group has nice test content. Again, I don't know actually anything about the content, but it's a good demo content. So I'm going to edit mode, and here I check this checkbox in the request transformation column. I could also check other spaces here, and those spaces would be migrated as well. But let's start with this one. Okay, the check mark is here, and I'm going back to WikiTraccs because now I click on Start Transformation. So it's checking the connections again, so it pops up several browser windows for you to authenticate again. This is again the wrong browser. This is surely something to improve for the future, but for now we can get it working like this. Or you just use one browser profile and switch accounts there. That is possible as well. Let's make this a bit bigger. So we have now two applications running. The GUI application started the actual migration application, which is WikiTraccs console. And right now it saw that still some lists or some fields are missing in SharePoint. It's creating this right now. That is one-time operation. So the first time you start a WikiTraccs migration, the WikiTraccs site will be prepared, and for every target site there will be a preparation once for this site. So here we can see that WikiTraccs went to Confluence and asked Confluence how many pages there are for this space, and it's 261 pages. And those are now scheduled for transformation. And yes, now one page after another is gotten by WikiTraccs, and it converts the page and saves it to SharePoint. So let's have a look how the resulting pages look. We should have the first page here, using the WikiTraccs account again. Not the store site, but this time it was, I think, target. Yep. Going to the pages library. And now I see already 4 pages that have been migrated. The naming scheme is the space key, the name, the title of the page, and the page ID. And I can see even more useful information by switching to a view. WikiTraccs created its recent pages. WikiTracks, and here I can see information about the transformation result, like where image is missing or could some text not be transferred and such things. And I want to look at the first page that has been migrated. It's this one here, and highlight some of the migration results. So at a first glance it looks very good, but let's have a look at the original one. And WikiTracks, by default, for every page that is migrated, it creates a link to the original page below here. So when I click this, I open the original page. Now let's put them side by side to see how it went. Okay, so we have the title of the page that is there, that is above here. We have also the publishing date that is transferred, also author, editor, and edit date. Then images are transferred as well, also externally linked images. They are downloaded and stored with the page. We have got more content like different headings. They are created to the headings that you can choose in the SharePoint text editor web part. You have the actual text content. You have a surprise description here that is not visible in the source page, but it is somehow there. That is something I would have to look into why it's there. But it's part of the page. So yeah. Then we have a video here. This video is converted to a link, and the link is put there instead of the video. We also have a certain layout here. So in Confluence, you can also, like in SharePoint, do layouts like 2 columns, 3 columns, narrow columns, and so on. And some of those can be replicated in SharePoint. So in this case, it works pretty well. You have a wider column here on this side, and on the right side, a narrow column. And this is reflected in SharePoint here as well. So let's scroll down. We have text formatting in the text that is transported as well. We have a citation here in Confluence, and that is converted to a citation of the text editor web part in SharePoint. Again, an image. Then we have something interesting here. This is a macro showing a tip, and you also have warnings and notes and so on. and this doesn't exist in SharePoint. So WikiTraccs converts this by generating a table, and this table looks a bit like this tip. And because we have no background colors, it marks the text or the block created here with a green color. That means, okay, it's a tip. And for warnings and so on, you would have a yellow or a red color as well. And then below here, we have certain macros, recent space activity that doesn't exist in SharePoint. So WikiTraccs generates placeholders for those web parts marked by this construction symbol here, and also space contributors doesn't exist in SharePoint. So we get a placeholder here. And that's basically it for the quick introduction. Our migration is running. When we look at the pages library, we can see the pages here getting more and more. We can look at the console, or we can look here at the GUI, showing us 15 of 261 pages have been migrated. And you can leave it open and it happily migrates. So if you have any questions, feedback, want to try it out, if you want to try it out, you can just download it and do basically what I just did. And for any contact options, please have a look at the website, and yeah, have fun.